Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show and globalbusinessnews.net. Google Analytics has said that our audience page views since this past January 1, right up through yesterday, was averaging over 1,800 audience page views a week across all the platforms. That's an all-time high for us, and we thank you very much. And it's because of special guests like today's Yvonne Quahe, who's coming to us from Geneva. And she's originally from Singapore, but been living in Washington, D.C. for a very long time, and travels a lot everywhere. Let's welcome Yvonne.
Thank you, Ed, for having me. You're always very kind.
Oh, you're always very nice to be my guest. So Yvonne, I'm going to read some of this. Yvonne Quahe is an author, coach, trainer, and facilitator with a background in human resources and global mobility. She helps couples and individuals, particularly people who are globally mobile, and work for those kinds of companies that require people to travel, at least before the pandemic. So her specialty is helping dual career couples get it together and keep it together. So with all that in mind, Yvonne, here we are today in mid-April of 2022. And for the past several months, millions of people have quit their jobs. And now I guess all that was started or facilitated because of the pandemic, just work from home. And all of a sudden they discover they have a life. What do you think?
Yeah. What do I think? Well, I think the pandemic is a real, what do I call,
Catalyst.
world experience,
Yeah.
that everybody can speak to. So it's a common experience. And I think it is also has a great disruptor. I mean, one of the great disruptors, of a generation, I would say. And I think the other thing, because the brain takes time to form new habits, and the pandemic was so long. I know initially we thought it'd be a month and we'll be back, and 2 years later we were still working from home. So that's enough time, actually, from a science point of view, to create new habits. Now, I think what has happened during that time is that we all have got new habits. Some of the habits are good habits, and some of the habits are bad habits. You have time to create just new habits. That doesn't always mean they're good habits. I think the other thing, people slowed down and they had time to think about what was really important for them. And I think this is at the heart of the great reshuffle, the great resignation, the great escape, whatever it is. And I think it gave people a time to try it out. Like a lot of people who left the city, like New York, and they said, why pay such high rents? I can go cheaper and I work remotely now. And I think they've actually formed new habits and a new lifestyle, saying, no, why do I need to go back to that?
And socialization issues, of course, have come up, meaning, and some mental health issues, because not everybody can manage working alone. They don't like being around the family 100% of the time, and it doesn't feed them. And so if they're trapped, then that creates some issues that bubble up and impact everybody and everything around that individual. So the idea of counseling, the telehelp, people phoning into betterhelp.com or, something, that has skyrocketed. I happen to know that because that company, betterhealth.com, is one of my advertisers. So I said it again. but they work. I mean, it's a system that works because families who in need or individuals in need, not serious, but just anxiety relief, or is just some guidance, somebody to talk to who isn't going to be judgmental, is going to give advice. That is really an important thing that's developed. I have found in my conversations with a lot of people who never before would have ever talked about that kind of thing. But anyway, let's talk about the people that you cater to in your day job, and how is that impacting for what you can share? And I know some things are private, but are people leaving an organization like the bank? I don't know why they would ever do that. It's such a
No, they don't. No, they're not.
wonderful organization, helpful to
No.
people because of managers like yourself.
I mean, no, people are not leaving at all. I think we have been exceptionally generous and very accommodating into understanding the people's needs, and that we are global. And so for us, we are not experiencing any of the great escape, or the great resignation.
Well,
or whatever
that's really good to hear, because that's a stabilizing thing to me, and perhaps our audience, to learn that a very large, prestigious organization is not impacted. Well, probably there's some people, but mostly people want to belong to an organization like that, because it's clearly a two-way intelligent place to be. Yeah.
No, they absolutely are not. I mean, we have provided a lot of mental health support. During the pandemic, we had parent empowerment labs, because people were finding the work from home very challenging when the children were at home as well. Yeah, exactly. And as you said earlier, drawing boundaries. When am I working, and when am I parenting, and having to help the children with schoolwork and all those sorts of things. And we supported with a lot of mental health, a lot of information seminars, resources that they could very quickly draw on. So I would say they have been and continue to be very well resourced and supported. So no, we definitely are not bleeding.
Let's talk about your book. It's a wonderful book. It's there in the background there.
Yes.
Whose career is this anyway? Well, it's everybody's career, isn't it? And so are you happy with the sales?
Well, I think we're getting there. I mean, it's not John Grisham, so. But as long as it makes a difference, that's why I wrote it. And for those people who have questions about how to manage dual careers and what do we do, and the case studies are proving very useful in giving ideas and the structure for conversation and things like that. So it is helpful if you're in that and looking for it, and of course looking for solutions. And of course, one of the things that the pandemic has given us is remote work. So even the most resistant manager now cannot say remote work doesn't work, because guess what? Everybody was remote working for at least the bulk of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. I wouldn't be around if I didn't have this TV screen in front of me.
That's true. That's true. And so now with remote work, dual career has an extra dimension, because there is one more lever, one more system that you can use to say, okay, fine, if we want to be together as a couple or as a family, we can still be that, and I can take my job with me. So hopefully that's going to be one of the good things about from the pandemic, hopefully.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
Stop dreaming and start living overseas. International lifestyle consultant Emily Braun can help you seamlessly transition to your new life in your dream destination. Whether you are a retiree, a digital nomad, or a mobile executive, Emily Braun can make your transition overseas a success. Visit emilybraun.com.
Coutalis is a global group with a worldwide footprint. With 16 agencies in 10 countries, Coutalis offers companies and mobile professionals a unique combination of HR services and options. Find us at coutalis.com.
Take your communication skills to the next level. Barbara Bolt of Bolt Global has a passion to make you shine. As our globe expands, effective intercultural communication and presentation is a must. Visit boltglobal.com.
So I wanted to change the subject a little bit, and if you don't want to do this, just redirect me. It's okay. So geopolitics. Hong Kong, first of all, let me say that back at the turn of the century, the most recent one, I was somewhat earlier than that, say in 1990, 87, in fact, we printed our print magazines. We published glossy print magazines called U.S. Bound, Inbound Relocation Information. And one of the largest units was called California Bound, and wildly successful product for a long time. And we printed the book, the magazine, but it was like 200 pages, glossy color. And we printed in the US and it cost a fortune, my God. And so a friend of mine was, at the time when I was living in LA, was from Korea originally, and he's a broker, of course, a business broker, and printing was his strong suit. And he said to me, we were at a luncheon at the LA Chamber of Commerce, and he says, I can save you 50 to 60% on your direct manufacturing costs. And there'll be no risk at all. I guarantee it, he said. And so he says, come with me. I'll pay for your trip. Come visit the plant in Seoul, Korea. I said, okay, I'll come. And so I started doing it with him. Then we saved like almost 60% on the direct manufacturing costs. It's perfect. And then after a while, he says, well, I have new contacts in Shenzhen, just outside Hong Kong, and you should consider doing some of your books there, as well as in Seoul. I said, okay. And so we went to Hong Kong, okay, and toured around. And this is back in like 1990. And so we developed all these contacts and information about doing business in that part of the world. Man, I've never been there before. So very successful for a number of years. And look what's happened in Hong Kong. Huge economic growth, not just because the British set it up right, but the Chinese allowed it to flourish until recently. And they think that they're doing themselves good by cracking down. This is my view. But the net effect is that companies are
Yeah.
bailing out of Hong Kong right now.
Right.
And of course, others saw it coming a year ago and they started relocating. And guess where they're going? Singapore area. Okay, which is has its own issues, but is certainly much more welcoming to capitalism and Western business methods, and without the political stuff. So, what do you think about companies? This is just not political; it's just business. Spending so much money building up the Hong Kong region as a business center, and now the companies just and people are running away because they're afraid of what could happen. What do you think about
Well, what do I think? Well, you know, that sadly
just
is
as a
also,
person, not the bank?
what do I think? I think that inevitably that people will look for a more easy passage to do business.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so Singapore, which I'm better placed to comment on than Hong Kong, has always made it very easy. And people have commented that what they really like about Singapore is that you know where you are. There are certain rules and there are regulations that have to be met, but they don't change. So in a way, they give you a lot of certainty that once you come here, you know with your eyes open, this is what you're in for. This is the policy on 1, 2, 3. And we don't change it overnight. It's all very clear. You do this, and if you don't, this is the consequence. You do this, and if you don't, that's the consequence. So I think it is. And also I think from the family point of view, from a mobility point of view, the fact that we are accommodating to the partners' careers is not as easy now as it was before because they changed the regulation during pandemic, but you can still work. And I think for the younger globally mobile people, you know, two people being able to pursue their careers becomes a very attractive talent magnet. And Singapore, I mean, again, at the risk of being biased, it is my home country, is very, very logistically very easy. You know, everything works. Accommodation, you can find anything you want from, I mean, provided you can pay for it. That is, you know, anything from high-rise apartment living to houses with gardens. I mean, you have many options, right?
Well,
Public transport works.
yeah. So the metropolitan region has blossomed as mushroom. Right now, it's mushroom. Yeah. And to the north, I think, right, where that new area is being built up.
You mean towards the causeway? I mean, we are desperate.
I don't know
land.
the exact. Yeah, I know,
we are
but
desperate for land.
Yeah,
We're
because
desperate.
it's so small, relatively speaking. But that area that's just north, that's being dramatically changed into high-rise city, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are completely, you know, I mean, they have these certain areas where you can't, and they've kept certain areas as for houses or bungalows, as they call them only. But by and large, most of it is high-rise building, yes, because we just don't have the space. And also, Singapore is quite good for regional travel. So, you know, it's a good base. The airport is easy to get to. So you can, you know, get out and it's efficient. So you could be home in 30 minutes, basically. It's not difficult.
Right. So interesting to talk about that and where people are migrating to as opposed to running away from. There's like a different
Right.
thinking and life experience. So in terms of coming back to the Great Escape, the Great Resignation, people are still working. It's not that they're dropping out. They just can't stand their boss, right? Or they don't want to do that kind of pressurized work anymore.
I think a lot of people, the younger people anyway, are really taking the opportunity to become digital nomads because technology is so good. And conversely, Singapore, to go back to Singapore, Singapore works very well, but Singapore is not cheap. So it will not be a center for digital nomads because you couldn't afford it. So the digital nomads are looking at different locations where living is more affordable, where it's cheaper for them, as well as that, immigration allows them to be. In certain countries, for instance, like Barbados, have now a digital visa. So you can just apply for if you pay, I think it was $3,000, I don't know if they increase, and that's for 1 year, and you can live in Barbados and be a digital nomad. So you can sit on the wonderful beach and do your work and go surfing in between or whatever you want to do. And a lot of the younger people are actually choosing that kind of lifestyle and picking the places, that they have always wanted to see, but couldn't because they had to work. Now they can do both. Right? So obviously the low cost, the cheaper locations are doing better because then day-to-day living is also cheaper and rents are cheaper. I think what may be a problem with remote work eventually is taxation and immigration. But I guess if you're a nomad and you never stay anywhere for very long, then you avoid the residency bit, right? Because every 3 months you up sticks and you go somewhere else and people, I've met people who say they've got their kit. They've got their little bags where they know exactly what office equipment they need and they can set up their office wherever they go. And that's it, 2 suitcases and we're off. Now, I think well, again, maybe it's just me, but I think that suits a certain age and stage. After a little while, I can't imagine being able to up my office and carry 2 suitcases with me.
We are pleased to welcome Adamo Education as a proud sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
The concept of a micro school is the reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. My name is Tamara Becker. I'm the president and CEO of Adamo Education. The micro school concept really does not just lend itself to the personalization and the customization of learning, but also the social development and fostering that sense of love for learning. Unlike what we see in traditional brick and mortar schools, we have multiple grade levels in the same learning space. Students can be enriched by the socialization that they get, as well as the academic support from peers. What differentiates Adamo is the fact that we are taking the best pieces of brick and mortar, of digital, and then at-home learning. Students here can come 5 days a week. They can come 4 hours a day. It will really just depend on what is best for the student and for the parent. To enroll, just reach out via phone, text, or email, and we'll have that personalized conversation, and we'll be able to get you all set. Check us out at adamoeducation.org.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
So let me ask you about, if I can, the organization to which you work. Are people going back into the office now under a system? Or is it 5 days, 3 days, 2 days?
I think most people I know are going for a hybrid, and a lot of it is working with your individual bosses to say, okay, which days, how many. I mean, for ourselves, At the bank, we've been very consultative, and you can say, you can choose, you want Mondays and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays or whatever, but it is more reduced to the team level, and you work it out with your boss, and the other teammates. Like, do we all go in, for instance, on the days that we have a team meeting so that we can see each other? So I think it's very, I'm not talking about my organization. I think from what I know of different organizations, it's very variable, but most are requiring at least 1 to 2 days in the office. Yes.
We're talking with Yvonne Quahe. Quahe? How should I say?
Quahe.
Got it. Okay, so talk to us again about your book. Whose career is it? Really? Is there a specific chapter you would take out or change? Were you to do it again? Like an updated version?
Updated version?
I mean, what is, because you started writing it, a couple of years ago. So,
yeah.
Or even longer back in your mind before it got down to typing.
Yeah.
So has anything changed with a view towards being an author and telling the story? What would you do differently?
What would I do differently?
In terms of writing the book, organizing the data.
I think what I would do would be to do more case studies and to aggregate the case studies to have more patterns, to identify, what are the critical success paths to success and what are the actual critical paths to less success or failure, as it were, and to see it also longitudinally across generations. How does this work? Is there an age and stage bias? So I think I would use, the case studies are very, very useful because they are lived experiences of people. So I would probably do the digital nomad now, but I think the digital nomad, I would do some of it, but it's quite new. So we don't have when you want to talk about career models, you have to sort of see how it works over different situations. You need a runway, 3 years, 2 years in lockdown and 1 year sort of when things started to relax. It's a beginning. It is a new possibility to consider, but there's no data really to say, hey, this really works over the long haul, right?
I really appreciate your coming on, and you're in Geneva, Switzerland right now. So it's the end of your day. And I really appreciate you being my guest again on Global TV Talk Show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Have a healthy week. And we'll see you again. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.